So despite using our oral communication skills every day in a variety of contexts, public speaking remains one of the most feared things in America. These fears are something that could inhibit you from possible employment. Employers are looking for people that are comfortable speaking within and to groups. To make students more well-rounded and to make that wholeness of person, Wittenberg has 16 general education requirements. 3 of these do not have any measurable goal. Speaking is one of them. And the faculty, if you may remember, even changed the language for the speaking goal earlier this fall to make what that goal wanted a little bit more clear. According to Paul Meyer, the author of Attitude is Everything, to make the most out of any goal, it needs to be what he calls SMART. That is, it needs to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. This speaking goal does not fit that measurableness, so the communication leaders thought of 4 different ways that we could make it measurable. These would include having workshops centered around oral communication and speaking in a variety of contexts, integrating the first-year experience and the speaking goal, requiring all students to attend a Rhetoric 101 class, or incorporating an O credit into the general education requirements. These all have their pros and cons. For example, workshops aren't always well attended on this campus. We have a notoriously over-programmed student body. Rhetoric 101, we would have to open 16 new sections each semester to just fit Wittenberg's need. So neither of these are very realistic. Fitting into the first year experience would be a very smooth transition. One of the goals of that program already is to foster student listening and speaking skills. But we also want to emphasize the importance of speaking throughout your 4-year career at Wittenberg. It isn't just something for freshmen, it's something that freshmen through seniors can benefit from. So that leaves us with the O requirement. This would be modeled off of Wittenberg's current writing requirement, the W-intensive classes. This has been around since the 1980s and has been pretty successful. This would allow students to cite specific examples to potential employers of how they excelled in oral communication. It would also allow students to be more flexible with what classes they chose. Because these courses could be another gen ed requirement and speaking intensive, they could pick those classes that most pertain to them. It would also help with the faculty because they could design their speaking assignments around what is needed for that field of study. It would also, the faculty would be able to change how much is required over time depending on the student need. So if the faculty saw that students need a little more speaking than we first assumed, you could increase that or decrease that accordingly. So now Dana will talk about the administrative structure.
So as Hannah mentioned, I will be discussing not only the need for a director, but also the combination of academic centers on our campus. Tyler hinted at this a little bit before, but there is a need for a director. We learned this multiple times at the NCA short course that Jenny and myself attended. The function of the director would be to promote leadership, diversity, cohesion, and provide guidance for students and the staff underneath them. We currently do not have someone who is an expert in running a speaking center. While the Foreign Language Center has Brenda Bertrand, the Writing Center has Mike Madison, and the Math Workshop has Obed Lewis. We need that direction within our Oral Communication Center. Also, there is no compensation for our current advisor of our Oral Communication Center. A director could also serve on the position for the Committee of Speaking and Writing for speaking across the curriculum. They could facilitate class visits to promote the Writing Center and also help enhance and create better speaking opportunities for the students. After discussing the need of a director, I will now discuss the different pros and cons for an academic center here on campus. This academic center would be all-encompassing. So basically, some of these pros would include there would be a centralized location for these centers. So like we said, 3 of our 4 centers are now within Hollenbeck Hall. Having Oral Communication Center move there could create cohesion between the different centers. They would be able to support each other and create carryover between departments. So if a student had a presentation that then had to be turned into a paper or vice versa, those centers could work together to help with the student need. But also, there are a lot of negatives along with this. One of them is that we don't want to create an overarching hierarchy of administration with a centralized location in combination of our academic centers. At the NCA short course, Dr. Theodore Shekels from Randolph-Macon College, who is the director and head for the Center of Teaching and Learning, said that this hierarchy impairs cohesion among the different directors, because not only is he the director of the entire academic center, he's also the director of their speaking center. So that hierarchy creates differences between money and where money is allocated between the different centers. He said that it mixes expectations and needs, the distinctions between the different centers are blurred, and there's a discrepancy between the administration. There would also be a different need for separate training and evaluation, and an emphasis on not just one focus but many. And this stresses our resources too far. So we believe that for teaching and learning, having that all-encompassing academic center may not be the best thing, but having a centralized location for all of our different centers with different directors would be the best. So now Megan will talk to you and discuss about our recommendations for sustainability.
So now what are we going to do? As communication leaders, we decided to make a 7-year plan. This timeline is to represent our sustainability goals. We made it pretty conservative, making it 7 years, but we want to emphasize that we would like these goals to be accomplished as soon as possible. As Tyler presented, we have 3 reformation goals, and as Dana presented, we would like to have a director. Hannah also talked about the O requirement. There's a spreadsheet in front of you. They're 3 separate papers. You can lay them side by side. Our immediate goals are to begin processing and creating the O credit, and also to rebrand the OCC, to have a more recognizable name on campus and to better serve students. You'll see other costs that are listed, and we factored these in to keep the center running. Between now and 5 years, we believe that we can get by with a communication professor as a supervisor or an adjunct professor just to keep the OCC afloat. But we don't want to lose momentum in leadership. So by year 5, our goal is to have the O credit fully implemented, to have this way, we realize that the requirement takes time. So we wanted to give it 5 years so that we would be able to have this O credit fully implemented into the curriculum. Also, our goal is to have a director hired. As Dana mentioned, we believe that this is the best form of leadership in order to take over the OCC. And the last segment on the timeline shows year 5 to 7. Our plan is to increase hours and workers, and so that there are more times and hours for students to go and visit the OCC. The new location would also make it more accessible to students, and a central location is ideal, as Tyler mentioned. So we created these many goals for a few very important reasons. Wittenberg needs to stand out even more to its prospective students. Wittenberg focuses on molding its students to not only be well-written, but also well-spoken. And that's across all curriculums, not just communication. In order to have a successful center, we need to fill this gap. And ultimately, we want to prepare our graduates to be prepared for what lies ahead, whether that's the workforce or graduate school. And ultimately, speaking skills are just important in any direction that you take in your life.
So once again, we'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your day to come here to hear us present our research. And we'd also like to give special thanks to all of these mentioned on the slide in front of you. And now we'd like to open the field up to questions. So feel free to raise your hand if you have any.